Can you believe this? I bought my dream cabin, this cozy little place tucked away in the mountains, perfect for getting away from it all. It's part of an HOA, which, has its pros and cons. Mostly, it seemed fine. The rules were pretty standard, and the neighbors kept to themselves. Or so I thought. The head of the HOA, a woman we'll call Karen, lived right across the way. She always seemed a little intense. Always watching, always making comments about my lawn or the color of my welcome mat. I just brushed it off as her being overly dedicated to her role. Little did I know how dedicated she really was. I work a pretty demanding job in the city, so I usually only get to my cabin on weekends. I cherish that time. It's my sanctuary. One week, I managed to finish a huge project ahead of schedule. My boss, being awesome, gave me the rest of the week off. I was ecstatic. I packed a bag, jumped in my car, and headed for the mountains, dreaming of a quiet few days with a good book and a warm fireplace. I decided not to tell anyone I was coming early, wanting to just surprise myself with a spontaneous vacation. That turned out to be a very, very good decision. I pulled up my long gravel driveway on a Wednesday afternoon, sun shining, birds singing, the whole picturesque scene. But as I got closer to my cabin, something felt off. The first thing I noticed was the cars. There were 3 of them parked in my designated spots, none of which I recognized. My heart started pounding a little. My first thought was maybe there was a mistake, or perhaps a neighborhood get-together and people had overspilled into my parking. I parked a little ways down the driveway and decided to walk up just to see what was going on. As I approached the porch, the sounds hit me. Loud music was blasting from inside my cabin. I could hear laughter, shouting, and what sounded like a full-blown party. I peeked through the front window, and my jaw just dropped to the floor. My living room was filled with people I'd never seen before. There were teenagers lounging on my sofa, my furniture had been rearranged, and there were empty cups and plates scattered everywhere. It looked like a scene from a college party movie, and standing right in the middle of it all, directing traffic like she owned the place, was Karen from the HOA. I was completely stunned. I just stood there for a second, trying to process what I was seeing. Was I dreaming? Had I driven to the wrong cabin? Nope. There was the ugly gnome my sister gave me as a housewarming gift, sitting right on my porch railing. This was my house. My private sanctuary had been invaded by a crowd of strangers, led by my nosy neighbor. I took a deep breath, my shock turning into white-hot anger. I fished my phone out of my pocket and started recording through the window. I needed proof of this insanity. After getting a few minutes of video, I decided it was time for a confrontation. I walked up to my own front door and knocked. Loudly. The music quieted down a little, and after a moment, the door creaked open. A teenage boy I'd never seen before peeked out. He looked at me, confused, and said, "Can I help you?" Can you help me?" I almost laughed. "Yeah," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You can tell me what you're doing in my house." His eyes went wide, and he stammered something before shouting, "Mum, there's someone at the door." And who walks to the door? None other than Karen. She had the audacity to look annoyed. "What is it?" she snapped, and then she saw me. The color drained from her face. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. "Oh, you're home," she stuttered. "Yes, I am," I said, my voice dripping with ice. "And I'd love to know why your entire extended family seems to be having a reunion in my living room." She started sputtering, trying to come up with an excuse. "Oh, well, you see, my brother's family was in town, and their hotel booking fell through, and I knew you were away for the week." I just stared at her. "So you decided to break into my house and let them stay here without my permission." She actually had the nerve to get defensive. "I didn't break in. I have a key for emergencies," she said, as if that made it any better. "An HOA emergency key for this. This wasn't a burst pipe. This was a full-on vacation at my expense." My stuff was everywhere. Someone was using my laptop. I could see them through the door. I'd had enough. "Everyone out," I said, my voice low and dangerous. Now, this is where it gets truly unbelievable. Karen crosses her arms and says, "I don't think so. We have an arrangement. We'll be out by Friday, just like we planned." I couldn't believe her audacity. She was trying to tell me when she would leave my own house. "Get out of my house, or I'm calling the police," I said, pulling my phone back out and making it very obvious I was ready to dial. That's when she did the unthinkable. She snatched her own phone out and screamed, "I'm calling the police on you. You're trespassing." She was calling the cops on me for trespassing on my own property. I just stood there, phone in hand, recording everything as she frantically dialed 911 and started shouting into the phone about a strange, aggressive person trying to break into a home. She gave them my address. I was so angry, I was shaking, but I knew I had to stay calm. Two can play at this game. I dialed 911 myself and calmly explained the situation to the dispatcher. "Hello, I'm the owner of 123 Mountain View Lane. I've come home to find my house has been broken into and is occupied by my neighbor and her family. She is now falsely reporting me for trespassing." Within minutes, 2 police cars came flying up the driveway, lights flashing. The officers got out, looking very serious. Karen immediately ran to them, putting on a dramatic, tearful performance. "Oh, thank goodness you're here, officer. This person is trying to force their way into the house. I'm the HOA president, and I was just checking on the property for the owner. She was a surprisingly good actress." The officers listened to her story, then turned to me, their faces grim. One of them asked, "Sir, can you explain what's going on here?" I took a deep breath and calmly said, "Officer, this is my house. I can prove it." I showed them my driver's license with my address on it. I showed them the deed to the house, which I thankfully had a digital copy of on my phone. And then, for the grand finale, I showed them the videos I had taken through the window before I even knocked on the door. The video of the party, of Karen bossing people around, and the video of our entire confrontation at the door, including her threatening to call the cops on me. As the officers watched the videos, their expressions changed from suspicion to disbelief, and finally to anger directed squarely at Karen. The game was up. Her lies completely unraveled right there on my front porch. One of the officers turned to her, and his voice was stern. "Ma'am, you're going to have to come with us." Karen's face went pale. Her family members, who had been peering out the door, started to look terrified. They were all ordered out of the house immediately. It was a chaotic scene of people scrambling to grab their things under the watchful eye of the police. Karen was arrested for breaking and entering and for filing a false police report. Her husband had to come and deal with the fallout. The rest of her family packed up their cars and left in a hurry, not even making eye contact with me. As for my cabin, it was a disaster. They had eaten my food, used my things, and left a huge mess. It took me the entire weekend just to clean up and put everything back in its place. I felt so violated. My safe haven had been completely disrespected. The aftermath was intense. I pressed full charges, of course. I also went straight to the rest of the HOA board with my evidence. The videos, the police report, everything. To say they were shocked would be an understatement. Karen was immediately removed as president, and I believe she and her family ended up moving out of the neighborhood not long after, probably due to the shame and the impending legal trouble. The story spread like wildfire through the community. I got a lot of apologetic waves from neighbors after that. It was a nightmare experience, but honestly, there was a certain satisfaction in seeing justice served so swiftly. The look on Karen S.'s face when she realized she'd been caught red-handed was something I will never forget. It's a crazy reminder that you really can't judge a book by its cover, or in this case, a neighbor by their HOA title. I've since installed a serious security system with multiple cameras. Let's just say no one will be having any surprise parties in my cabin ever again. Thanks for listening to my insane story. It's one for the books. That's for sure. If you liked this, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more crazy stories. See you next time.